Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and if I don't see you, good night. Welcome to Historiando PR. We are back. We're going to be starting a new video series that's going to be a complementary series to topics that we're going to be writing about and publishing in our Patreon. All of these videos are going to have essays that I will be writing, and they're going to be published in my Patreon. And the entire video will be also published in Patreon. So you're only getting an excerpt, a few amounts of minutes, just so you can get a feeling for these videos. And if you're interested in learning more about the topics that we're going to be talking about, you can head over to my Patreon and watch the entire videos and read the essays and all the complementary materials that are going to be in English. I've decided to do this series in English so that I can reach more people outside of Puerto Rico, outside of the Caribbean, or actually to reach more people in the Caribbean, because in the Caribbean, English is spoken more in other countries aside from Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. So without further ado, my name is Edwin Jusino Aldarondo. I'm a PhD. I graduated from the Inter-American University in Puerto Rico, from the History of the Americas combined program. So my specialty is sports history, but most of my program was basic, or rather general American history, more focused into the Caribbean. So that is what we're going to be talking about in this series, Historia. We're focused on Caribbean history and talking about the myths of what is true, what is not, and bringing up new discoveries that are happening every day. So without further ado, we're going to be talking about 10 facts about native Caribbean cultures. Like I said, this entire video is going to be available in our Patreon. So if you want all of the 10 facts, you're going to have to head over to my Patreon and subscribe and help me help you learn more about Caribbean history. So let's get started. So the population of the Caribbean is a very interesting subject. There are a lot of theories that go from the range of just a few 100,000 to around 6 million. We're talking about the entire Caribbean, not just one island, right? So in the entire Caribbean, there are estimates that go from 100,000 to around 6 million. From the information that can be garnered from primary sources, there was around an estimated 1 million native Caribbeans living in the entire Caribbean when Christopher Columbus arrived in an island somewhere in the Bahamas. So, who were the Ciboney? The Ciboney were the very first settlers of the Caribbean. Most of the Caribbean migrations are theorized that they all came from El Rio Orinoco, from the northern, from the Rio Orinoco or the Orinoco River Delta area, which is around the northern area of Venezuela, or what is today known as Venezuela, and they island hopped from Venezuela all the way to the Bahamas. That said, there are other theories. One particularly from Dr. Ricardo Alegría, an archaeologist here in Puerto Rico, that he theorized that The Ciboney or the Archaics came from Florida downwards. But again, these are just theories. What is known is that the Ciboney population, at least in Puerto Rico, is found around the southern area of the island, and at the time of the Spanish conquest of the Caribbean, the Ciboney population could be found in the western area of Cuba. So the Arawaks is a group, a large group of native Caribbeans, or actually Native Americans or Amerindians that come from that area of the Orinoco River. They were actually originated from the Amazon rainforest area, and they migrated north all the way to the Orinoco River Delta. They can be found, or the Arawak speaking tribes can be found around Venezuela, Colombia, all of that area, called the Circum-Caribbean region. Most of the Arawak speaking tribes or groups or societies, they all had very similar structures, and they all had very similar tongues and languages, which is the reason why we can't divide them up in different subgroups, because they were the same people. For example, if you go to, I don't know, let's just use England for example. A person born in Manchester, in that Manchester area, it's gonna have probably a different way of speaking English from a person that was born and bred in London. They're also going to have very different customs, yet they're all English. That's the same way. That's the best way to see the Arawak culture, or the Arawak societies that developed in the Caribbean. These Arawaks, they are a second and a third migration. They came obviously from what I already said, from the Orinoco River Delta area, and they migrated north, island hopping as well as the Ciboney. The difference between the Ciboney and the Arawaks is gonna be mainly in that the Arawaks are a more agricultural society, versus the Ciboney is a more hunter-gatherer society. So let's talk about the Tainos. Oh god. This is gonna get interesting. So Taino is not actually their name. I've been seeing a lot of these reports regarding genetics, and there's still Puerto Ricans having 20% of Eyeri genetics in our genetical composition. Genetics does not equal culture. So the answer to this question is no. There are still Kalinagos in the Caribbean. They are mainly in Dominica and in Trinidad and Tobago. There's also Kalinagos that are still living in Venezuela, and there are some Kalinagos that mix with escaped former slaves, which were transported by the British from the Caribbean to what is today Honduras. Thank you for watching, and remember to like, subscribe, and if you want to see the entire video, subscribe in my Patreon, which will be linked down below. Hasta la próxima. Ciao.